adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends.
Starring that jet-age aerial ace, Rocket J. Squirrel. And his pal, Bullwinkle the Moose.
Hi, glad to see you again.
Likewise.
We got some great things on the show today.
Like what? Like what?
Well, you ought to know, Bullwinkle. You're in some of them.
Well, let's get started.
Our story opens today in the beautiful little village of Frostbite Falls, Minnesota, where That's Frostbite Falls? Where our heroes, Rocky and Bullwinkle, are,
Which way'd they go, Black Eagle?
Go that way.
Come on, Sheriff. We'll head 'em off at Eagle Pike.
Now, wait a minute. That isn't the Rocky show. Can we do...
Check the monitor, will you, Jim?
I got it. We're all clear here.
Well, you got the crossover made?
Yeah, I can't think why it's...
Well, look, see if you can trace it on line 12, will you?
Right.
One moment, ladies and gentlemen, please. We seem to have a Western on in place of the Rocky show.
Hey, somebody's hooked up number 27 here.
Well, you better pull it, Jim.
Okay.
That's better. Now, who could have done...
I cannot tell a lie. More's the pity. I did it.
You did it, but why, Bullwinkle?
Because I'm just crazy about Westerns.
You're just crazy, period.
Can I help it if I'm a cowboy at heart?
But you're already a big television hero type.
Yeah, but why don't I ever get to wear a big hat like Two-Gun Twombly?
Well, there's a good reason.
I'm not a U.S. Marshal?
No, your antlers are in the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it looked as if the nearest Bullwinkle would ever get to the Wild West was on his television set.
You aiming to draw, stranger?
You said it, Trampus.
Then make your play.
All right, Oh! He got me!
Bullwinkle, what's the matter?
That's the third time this season he outdrew me.
Yeah, but that's just...
I must be slipping.
You're just what?
Bottom gun, that's me.
Yes, Bullwinkle was cowboy happy, all right. Every morning he'd rope the milk in off the front porch. Every evening he watched the television from his saddle, and at night he even took to wearing his spurs to bed.
Ow! That does it! No more Westerns for a week, Bullwinkle.
No more Westerns. I can't kick the habit cold like this.
Come, Bullwinkle. Are you a moose or a mouse?
I've been awful afraid of cats lately.
Well...
Oh, come on, Rocky. Just one itsy-bitsy teeny-weeny peek at Two-Gun Twombly rides again.
Well, just this once.
You gonna draw, stranger?
I was fixing to.
Then make your play.
All right, I just...
Well, now you've done it.
I sure have. I beat him.
But, Bullwinkle...
Top gun again. Fastest in the west.
We're in the
The
north.
northwest.
But look at the
I
TV.
can't. It's bust, and I... Bust? Oh, what have I done?
Yes, a TV that was bust meant a whole new life for Bullwinkle. For after only a week of staring at the silent set, he began to read raunchy ranch tales, cowhand comics, side saddle stories, the evening paper.
How'd that get in there?
Bullwinkle, you gotta get your mind on something besides Westerns.
Well, okay, I'll read the want ads instead.
Thank goodness.
But even that seemed to be a bad idea, for Bullwinkle's eye immediately lit on a very interesting ad indeed.
Look at this, Rocky. For sale, Lazy J Ranch, 1,000 acres of top-bottom land.
Your chance to go west fast. Box 1313, Squaws Ankle, Wyoming.
Full price, $28.
Solid question. $28. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
And we don't know anything about ranching.
yeah,
On the other hand, it is a new adventure.
yeah,
And the rating on our show's been slipping a little.
yeah.
So let's do it.
I figured if I waited long enough, you'd be back. Let's go!
But if only our boys had looked at the front page of the paper as well, they would have seen that they were headed directly for trouble, real trouble. Don't miss our next episode, Fast and Moose, or The Quick and the Dead. Well, Bullwinkle Bullwinkle's urge to go west was pretty serious, all right, particularly when he shot out the TV tube trying to outdraw Two-Gun Twombly.
Fastest gun in the West.
Unfortunately, he was the slowest TV repairman and not too bright.
Oh!
He looked pretty bright to me.
And so our boys were reduced to, reading in the evening.
Dick and Jane see the dog.
Wild.
But then Bullwinkle came across a want ad that changed his whole life.
For sale, ranch-style ranch. 1,000 acres. $28 full price.
Low down payment.
And in less time than it takes to tell, our boys were on their way to Squaw's Ankle, Wyoming. Alas, if they had only glanced at the front page, they might have changed their minds, for at that moment a fearful monster was ravaging Squaw's Ankle. But little knowing the fate that awaited them, our heroes slumbered fitfully on a speeding cross-country train, Rocky in an upper and Bullwinkle in a lower.
Gee, I just can't sleep, Rock.
You that excited, Bullwinkle?
No, my torso keeps dragging on the ties. Ooh!
The train roared on through the night, and next day arrived at Squaw's Ankle, Wyoming.
Well, here's where we get off, Bullwinkle.
Right, Rock.
Bullwinkle, are you hurt?
Yeah, I think I got eternal injuries.
You mean internal injuries.
I mean eternal injuries. I'm always getting hurt.
Howdy, strangers. Give you a lift to town?
Yeah, but first give me a lift into the wagon.
And so a little while later, our heroes found themselves in the friendly western town of Squaw's Ankle.
You fellers fixing to stay on a piece?
On a piece of what?
Bullwinkle, he means are we here to stay?
None of us are here to stay, Rock.
I mean...
We all gotta go sometime.
Mighty glad to have you with us, Rocky. Aren't we, folks?
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You too, Bullwinkle.
Likewise.
Just where you figuring on staying while you're here?
Well, we bought a ranch just outside of town.
Why, that's wonderful. Ain't it, folks? What ranch did you buy?
It's called a Lazy J.
The Lazy J.
Oh! That's great, ain't it, folks? Folks?
Gee, Bullwinkle, everybody left.
Not everybody, Rocky. Look there.
Sure enough, a lone figure still remained, holding a pencil and paper.
I bet you want our autograph, don't you?
No, I'd just like your measurements.
Measurements.
Must be one of those tailor fellas.
My card, gentlemen.
Uh-oh. Dudley Digg, licensed undertaker.
6'2" overall.
No, not overhauls. Something a little sportier.
Waist 36.
I'd like a little padding in the shoulders, too.
Oh, you'll get padding from head to toe.
How about a belt in the back?
Bullwinkle, he's an undertaker.
I don't want to tell you how to run your business, mister, but aren't you a little early with that tape measure?
Just a few hours.
A few hours.
See you a little later.
Yeah.
Though, of course, you won't see me.
Gee, the sun must be down, Bullwinkle. All of a sudden, I feel a little chilly. How about you?
Just my feet, Rock.
We better go find our ranch before it gets dark.
I'm with you.
Stick close to me, Bullwinkle.
If I was any closer, I'd be on the other side of you.
And our boys began to move through the deserted town on their way to the Lazy J Ranch. Little did they know that stark terror awaits them there.
Funny, he said he'd meet us at the train.
Be with us next time for Buzzard Bait or the Carrion Call. Last time, you remember, our heroes started out west to see the ranch they had just bought for $28. When they arrived in Squaw's Ankle, Wyoming, everyone seemed very friendly until...
Where'd you say you fellas were going to live?
On our ranch.
Well, ain't that just James Dandy? What's the name of it?
The Lazy J.
Sure got lonesome all of a sudden, didn't it?
Nobody left but us and one stray dog.
Just because we said Lazy J.
How come he didn't leave the first time?
Must be hard to hear him.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to leave, too, whilst we are able.
Oh, Bullwinkle, you're not going to let them scare you away, are you?
I was toying with the idea, yes.
Well, come on.
And so undaunted,
Well, only slightly daunted.
our friends set out for the Lazy J Ranch.
Where does the ad say the ranch is?
Just outside of town.
Bound to be around here somewhere.
How right you are, as usual. Looky there.
Lazy J Ranch. Entrance.
Wild West, here we are.
Look out, Bullwinkle! Are you all right?
Think so, but my nerves must be going bad.
How come?
I feel like I'm on pins and needles.
Well, you are. That's a cactus. You see, you fell on a cactus. when you-
Okay. I get the point.
And in a few minutes, our boys were picking their way down a steep, steep hill. Suddenly, without warning...
Duck, Bullwinkle!
If I was any lower, I'd be looking up to see down.
Somebody's shooting at us from that little house on
Uh-oh, we better go back to our place and get some help.
We can't. This is our place.
You're right, let's not go there. Boy, that was close.
Close? Bullwinkle, that cactus is clear on the other side of the valley.
That's close enough.
I'm going to see who it is that's such a terrible shot.
Okay, but don't help him any, hmm?
And the plucky squirrel zoomed right toward the house and into a window. He pulled to a halt as a voice said,
Hold it, fella. I know you're there.
Well, how do you know I'm here?
I hear you breathing. Now mosey on out of here, you hear?
Yeah, but I'm the new owner of the Lazy J.
In that case, mosey on in.
and our Rocky entered the bedroom of the small shack. In the bed was a huddled figure.
Gee, who are you?
I'm the old owner of the Lazy J.
Yeah, what's your name?
What else? I'm Lazy J himself.
Was that you shooting at us?
That's right. Thought y'all was rustlers.
But we're over this way. You're shooting in the opposite direction.
Uh-huh. But if I was facing that way, I'd sure give you what for.
Well, why don't you?
Frankly, I'm too lazy.
But in a little while, our heroes had propped Lazy J up to a standing position, and he began to show them the points of interest of the ranch.
Over there is Dead Man's Swamp. That-a-way you'll run into Grizzly Gulch, and over yonder is the Burning Badlands.
Isn't there any good land on the ranch, Lazy J?
Oh, sure, the South 40's got some of the best land in these here parts.
And it did, too. There was only one problem. The South 40 ran straight up and down.
Our cows must be mountain climbers.
Cows? What cows?
No cows?
Nary a hoof hiding her hair.
Well, what do you raise on this ranch, anyway?
I'd better whisper it to you.
And as Lazy J whispered just one word into Bullwinkle's ear, the mighty moose's hair turned completely white all over. Be sure to see our next colorful episode,
Except for me.
Rocky Rides Again or Small in the Saddle. When Rocky and Bullwinkle arrived at their new ranch, the Lazy J, they found that it wasn't the choicest piece of real estate in the world. As a matter of fact, the only good piece of land on it ran straight up and down.
Must have some mighty acrobatic cows on this ranch.
Acrobatic?
Or maybe they got suction cups on their hoofs.
You plumb loco?
No, I'm plumb Bullwinkle.
There's no cows on this ranch.
No cows.
Well, it's not so bad being a sheep herder, Rock. Sometimes they're the good guys, too.
No sheep neither.
Hogs, maybe?
Nope.
Muskrats?
Nope.
Horses?
Nope.
Chinchillas?
Nope.
Mink?
Nope.
Platypuses?
Nope. Hold it. I'm plumb tuckered out waggling my head back and forth.
Well, what do you raise on this ranch?
I better whisper.
What?
Bullwinkle! Gee, he fainted. What did you say to him?
I better whisper.
Good heavens, both of our heroes have fainted. Well, what did you say to them?
Just told them what we raise on this ranch.
Well, what is it?
I better whisper. Worms.
Worms?
Well, I bet dog. He fainted too.
Did I hear you right? This is a worm ranch?
A worm ranch?
A worm ranch?
Say, if you fellas would get together, you'd make a fine trio.
A worm ranch.
See, I told you.
Yes, it turned out to be all too true. The boys had traveled 1,000 miles and spent $28 of their hard-earned money to buy a worm ranch.
Yep, it's the biggest herd in these here parts.
But where is it?
Where else? Underground.
Sure enough, the boys had taken on the job of herding a bunch of critters they couldn't even see. But for the next few weeks, they were too busy to worry about it. First, there was the big spring roundup.
What's this contraption got to do with the roundup?
Only way we know where the little rascals are.
What do I do?
You jump up and down on this pogo stick. Sort of drive 'em ahead of you. Good luck.
And so our friends started out to round up their herd.
Whoopee! Hi-yi-yo, get along, little doggy.
Bullwinkle, we aren't rounding up doggies.
I know, but I just can't bring myself to sing Get Along, Little Worms. And, uh-oh,
What is
a
it?
stray is cutting loose from the herd.
After him, Bullwinkle.
Get back in there. No, the other way. And, uh-oh, I lost him. Oh, that does it. No early worm can give me the bird.
Uh-oh, now you've done it.
What I done it?
You spoke the herd. They're stampeding.
Well, it certainly looked that way, for the ground began to tremble as if there were an earthquake.
Jumping gee horse fat. Must be millions of them.
Stampede!
Underground stampede. What do we do now?
In the movies, they always try to head off the leaders.
How can you head them when you don't know which way they're going?
I don't know, but we gotta try. Keep pounding on the ground.
And our heroes bravely tried to turn the leaders.
Come on, turn. Get him turned around.
Eventually, the trembling stopped,
Except for my knees.
and our boys knew the herd had quieted down. But their troubles weren't over, not by a long shot, for watching our boys from a nearby hill was a sinister figure, wearing, of all things, a cowboy hat and kilts. Who can this mysterious stranger be? We'll find out next time in The Last Angry Angus or Hot Scotch. Well, our heroes are the proud owners of the Lazy J Ranch, 1,000 acres of the worst real estate in the West. So terrible is the terrain that the only thing they can raise on their ranch is worms.
That's right. We raise all kinds of worms.
Hook, cut, tape, fishing, and angle. Get along, little doggy.
And while Bullwinkle rounds up the herd by means of his surplus mine detector,
For detecting surplus mines.
Rocky has taken on the task of clearing all the stones off the North 40.
Gee, Mr. Lazy J, there must be a jillion of them.
1,008,000,000, Rocky. I counted them last July and August.
Boy, how can you be so lazy?
I work at it night and day.
Rocky started on his Herculean task. Back and forth he flashed, lugging the heavy boulders, and at day's end had a huge pile of rocks heaped at the ranch gate.
Well, now what, Rocky?
I just put up this sign and we're in the boulder business.
Rock garden kits.
Do it yourself with Rocky's Rocks. 10 cents each.
Boy, that's a keen idea.
As an idea, it may have been keen, but as a business, it was a terrible flop. So in the succeeding days, the price of Rocky's Rocks dropped lower and lower. Unfortunately, the pile grew higher and higher. Finally, the sign was changed to read,
Free. Take 'em away.
but still nobody bought any, and the pile grew larger daily.
Is that any relation to Dan Daly?
Bullwinkle!
Or Dilly Daly?
There's only one thing left to do.
Pay people to take 'em away.
No, listen.
Oh, I love these scenes where people whisper.
Tickles your imagination.
Tickles my ear fuzz.
Actually, Rocky's plan was very simple. He simply painted a large sign that read,
Warning, do not take rocks.
and left it on the pile overnight. Sure enough, next morning, there wasn't a boulder in sight.
Somebody even took the sign.
It's nice to know you can depend on people.
People indeed, for that entire pile had been taken by one man who now sat in a house on the outskirts of Squaw's Ankle, Wyoming, a house which was now full of rocks from floor to ceiling. And the man? Who else? That arch criminal, that kingpin of crime, that mass of pure mean...
Super Slab!
No, you're Boris Badenov.
Hello again, fans.
Tell me, Boris,
Yes, Natasha, he said, reminding everyone what her name is.
how come we got a house full of rocks?
You saw sign, Natasha. Do not take rocks. I had to steal them.
Had to?
It's in my contract.
What do we do with them, darling?
They must be worth something. Let's try and see.
So the two thieves tried their best to use the rocks as bowling balls.
Okay, Natasha, knock down 10 pins.
But the stones weren't quite round enough for that.
Oh, sorry, darling. Should I get doctor?
Of course not. Get Pinboy and set me up in other alley.
They even tried the boulders as ammunition for a huge cannon.
Ready, aim, fire.
They were a little too heavy.
We tried with different gun.
And please, darling, different gunner, too.
But where is Boulder?
As luck would have it, that huge stone was rolling downhill, right toward the main street of the little town of Squaw's Ankle.
Boris, that stone, it will crush hundreds of people.
Well, what do you know, Natasha? It's good for something after all.
Will the massive stone really wipe out the village? Be sure to see our next episode, Our Town or the Home of the Grave. Well, when we left our story last time, a huge boulder was rolling downhill toward the town of Squaw's Ankle, Wyoming, followed closely by Boris Badenov and Natasha Fatal.
Natasha, Boulder is gaining on us.
We couldn't stop it anyway, Boris.
Who wants to stop it? I just want to be there when it hits.
Then why not take shortcut, darling?
Natasha, are you forgetting who is brains of this outfit?
Sorry, darling, what do you want to do?
We'll take shortcut.
Oh, Boris, you've done it again.
A little way ahead, the villagers were all unaware of their terrible danger.
Dagnabbit, Calvin, nothing ever happens in this here town.
You're so right, Durward.
Hey, you fellows, big news.
What's that, Basil?
Harry the Hermit's in town for his annual haircut.
Oh, boy!
Hot thing! you.
Do tell.
Well, 23.
Yes, in Squaw's ankle, even a haircut was a big event. And so in a few seconds, everyone had dashed into the barber shop. As a result, the huge boulder rolled harmlessly down the middle of a deserted main street, and when Boris and Natasha arrived on the scene...
Phooey, there's nobody here to get run over by boulder.
Oh, yes, there is, darling.
Wonderful. Who is it?
Ah.
Oh, boy. Run for it, Tony Bone.
Run for what?
Run for your life.
And the two villains raced down the street as the mighty stone rolled after them.
In here, Natasha.
Quickly, the terrified pair dashed into a nearby building, which just happened to be the sample room of the government assay office.
Brace yourself against door, Natasha.
Right, Boris.
You sure you're bracing, Natasha?
Let's face it, darling, this thing is bigger than both of us.
It certainly was, for the huge stone left a trail of wreckage behind it. Samples of gold, silver, uranium, and just plain dirt. The assay office was a shambles, and so was Natasha.
Well, Boris, Boris, where are you? Come in. Boris, is that you?
You were expecting maybe the Tin Man?
In a little while, the villains had caught up with their rolling stone. Boris looked at it closely.
Nope.
What is it, Boris?
Just as I thought. No moss.
But that stone had gathered a lot more than moss, for in rolling through the ore samples, it had picked up bits of every precious metal known to man. And Boris had picked up something, too.
A lump on my head.
And an electronic analyzer.
Why did you steal analyzer, darling?
Best reason in the world.
Why?
It wasn't nailed down.
But just then, the analyzer began to act very strangely.
Hey, what's going on?
You have it pointed at stone, darling.
And look what it registers, Natasha. Gold.
Silver.
Copper.
Uranium.
Knowledge. Malleable. More gold.
Boris, this rock is worth a fortune.
And what's more?
Yes.
Plenty more where that came from.
On ranch that belongs to Moose and Squirrel, right?
Wrong. On ranch that used to belong to Moose and Squirrel.
You mean?
I sure am. Come on, Natasha.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch,
I just knew he'd say that.
Rocky and Bullwinkle were just finishing the spring roundup of their underground herd. For the Lazy J, you remember, was really a worm ranch.
Boy, that was a tough job. Sure glad it's over.
Over? All them worms gotta be counted and branded.
We gotta count 'em.
Careful like, too.
Gee, we're gonna need some help.
But who?
Hootman, allow me to introduce myself.
Hokey Smoke, who are you?
World's only Scotch cowboy.
A Scotch cowboy? What's your name?
What else? Black Angus.
Uh-oh. Don't miss our next episode, The Big Countdown, or Tally in Our Alley. Last time, as you remember, our heroes had just finished the spring roundup on their worm ranch.
That spring wound up.
The word is roundup.
What do you do with the spring?
Well, you wind it up and... had just finished the spring wound up, and we're ready to start the annual tag day.
Tag Day.
Every one of them little critters has got to be marked with a Lazy J.
What for? What for?
So nobody will steal them.
Steal 'em.
You mean there's such a thing as worm rustlers?
That's right.
Oh, come on. Who'd be mean enough to do a thing like that?
Hootman, allow me to introduce myself.
Great gobs of goo, Rocky. Will you look at that?
A cowboy wearing kilts.
Aye, laddie, I'm world's only Scotch cowboy. Call me Black Angus. This is my sidekick, Natasha McTavish.
She's Scotch, too.
Just half Scotch.
What's the other half?
Soda, darling.
We come to sign on his cow hands.
Angus here is champion bull thrower.
Thanks anyway, but we don't raise cows. We raise worms.
Worms.
All kinds. Hook, tape, cut, flat, angle, and measuring.
And today is Tag Day.
We gotta label each and every critter with a Lazy J label.
Boris, darling, they're putting us on, no?
Could be, Natasha, but let's play it cool. Oh, laddie, could my partner and I watch the operation?
Be my guest.
And our heroes started the weary task of slapping a label on every single worm.
And quite a few married ones.
Hold it, Bullwinkle. That one's a caterpillar.
Oh, I thought he was wearing a raccoon coat.
Boris, they're not kidding. They raise worms.
Taking over this ranch should be easy, Natasha. An idiot could do it.
And you're just the man for the job. But tell me, why do we want a worm ranch?
You forgot Plato already?
No, but everybody else has.
Okay. Flashing back as is our custom, you'll remember we put analyzer on rock from Lazy J Ranch.
And hit jackpot. Boris, what's that stuff?
Who cares? If it's that hard to say, it must be worth plenty.
And so that is why we're going to take Wrench away from Squirrel and Moose.
But how?
Easy. We drive her to market for them.
We become ranchers?
Sure. Monkey ranchers.
You mean...
Of course. If I lose whole herd, they go broke. Sell cheap.
And thus it was a short time later that Black Angus was made trail boss and put in charge of taking the herd to market.
But where is the market?
His big fishing resort right here.
But that's 50 miles away.
How are you going to drive a herd of worms 50 miles?
Easy. I got big whip.
One thing, Mr. Black Angus.
Call me Blackie, laddie.
You said your partner, Miss McTavish, was Scotch.
Aye?
Then how come she's wearing those expensive earrings and bracelets?
Yeah, doesn't look very Scotch to me either.
Not so loud, ladies. She might hear you.
Secrets, huh?
We don't like to mention it, but she's the only spendthrift in the whole family.
Big plunger, huh?
Spends money like water.
I haven't spent any water lately.
You mean Miss McTavish is a spendthrift Scotch?
Of course, that's how she got her nickname.
What's that?
Lavish McTavish.
I should have known.
And so a little while later, our heroes were on the trail, beating the ground with sticks to keep the underground worm herd on the move. Little did they know that their trail boss, Boris, was leading them right to the edge of a steep cliff and certain doom for the whole herd. Don't miss our next episode, Aches and Plains or the Old Chisholm Trail. Last time, you remember, marked the start of the big underground roundup as our heroes start to drive their herd of angleworms to the nearest fishing resort 50 miles away. Rocky thumped on the ground to keep the herd moving while Bullwinkle used his own mine detector to round up strays. But unbeknownst to our friends, their trail boss, the world's only Scotch cowboy,
Black Angus at your service.
was in reality Boris Badenov, their old nemesis.
Why is you never hear of young nemesis?
Boris, of course, was determined to ruin Rocky and Bullwinkle.
But Boris, darling, how you're going to do it?
His lead pipe cinch, Natasha. I lead herd over this cliff. No worms, no money, no ranch.
Then we move in. Take it off their hands for nothing.
Well, the price is right.
Oh, Boris, you such a well-trained villain.
Why not? I'm old university grad.
What university?
SC.
Southern California?
No, scoundrels and crooks.
Oh.
Magna cum laude.
Unaware of Boris's fiendish aims, Rocky and Bullwinkle continued driving the herd toward the cliff.
Get along there, herd. What's so funny, Bullwinkle?
I was thinking how silly it'd be if anybody was watching us on television.
Yeah, no fear of that.
They wouldn't have the faintest idea what we were doing.
Yeah, but on the other hand...
What?
Do they ever?
I see what you mean.
It was at that moment that the first of the herd wiggled out from the face of the cliff and dropped into space.
Boris, your plan is actually working.
What do you think you're dealing with? Kids or something?
But at last, Rocky began to catch on.
Hey, isn't that the edge of a cliff up there?
You're right. The whole herd must be going over. Come on.
Boris, here they come. How you're going to explain this?
Watch. Oh, laddie, the wee bairns didn't pay attention to my directions.
If the herd's gone over the cliff, we're ruined.
And they would have been if luck hadn't smiled on our heroes.
Again?
Yes, it seems that there was a very strong strain of silkworm in the Lazy J herd, and by the time they had fallen halfway, each tiny creature had spun itself a small parachute.
Why, them smart little rascals.
Yes, our heroes had been spared by a rare stroke of fortune.
Them she strokes. Me, she gives a belt in the mouth.
Not only that, but by gathering up the discarded shoots at the bottom of the cliff, our friends found themselves with a stock of 40,000 silk handkerchiefs.
How thoughty. Takes care of our Christmas shopping for next year, too.
Come on, Mr. Angus. Hey, where'd he go?
Here's a note pinned to this rock.
I'll tack the high road, and you tack the low road. Signed Black Angus.
What's that mean?
It's Scotch dialect for I quit.
But not far away, the two villains were still plotting our hero's downfall.
Well, you failed again, Boris.
Time to check Fireside Crook Book. And, oh boy, why didn't I think of this before?
Because you stupid. Pretty funny, eh, darling?
Natasha, double-cross me, I understand. Stab me in the back, it's just business. But top me in jokes, you're dead pigeons.
Sorry, darling. What is plan?
Anything I can't stand it. Smart Alex straight woman.
Yes, Boris.
Remember who is star of this show.
Yes, Boris.
Remember who is #1 big shot.
Yes, Boris.
Remember who puts bread in your mouth.
Sponsor.
You said it. Now, here's my plan, darling.
Oh, darling. Not.
And on hearing the plans, even the cold-blooded Natasha fainted dead away. Well, what terrible thing does Boris have in mind for our friends?
I'm afraid to say it out loud.
Why?
I'm afraid I'll faint myself.
We'll find out next time in Bucket-Headed Bullwinkle or Pale-Face Moose. Hey, kids, today's the day we find out what fiendish plan Boris Badenov is going to try on our heroes next.
That's what you think, buddy.
But you have to tell us.
Who says?
Well, it's in the script. Look here, see?
Phooey! That's what I think of script. Nobody tells Boris Badenov what to do.
Oh, dear. Meanwhile, our heroes, Rocky and Bullwinkle...
Hokey Smoke, are we on?
You're a page and a half ahead, fella.
Well, I know, but the script got torn up.
Uh-oh.
Meanwhile, our heroes are nearing the fishing resort of Angel's Cramp with their underground herd of fishing worms.
Hokey Smoke, I hope we make it, Bullwinkle.
That's my line.
Sorry, Rock, I'm still a little confused.
Meanwhile, at the big fishing resort...
That's my line.
Sorry.
Oh, dear.
Maybe we ought to take it from the top again.
Meanwhile, at the mountain fishing resort of Angel's Cramp, a serious situation had developed.
Finlayson, where are you?
I'm in the dark room, Mr. Penworthy.
The dark room? What are you doing?
I'm developing our serious situation.
And what is our serious situation?
No bait.
It was true. At that moment, the fishing resort was besieged by anglers from all over the country, and there wasn't a bit of bait to be found.
Unless we get some bait, we're ruined.
I'd pay $1 apiece for fishing worms.
Did you hear that, Rocky?
Course not, Bullwinkle. That fishing resort is 5 miles away.
I could swear it was right over here.
Bullwinkle!
Oh, all right.
You know, something tells me our herd of worms may be worth $1 apiece.
No kidding! Then we had best get a wiggle on. Worm-wise, that is.
Everybody up! Let's go!
Hit 'em up, move 'em out. Hit 'em up, move 'em out. Medium rare hide.
Medium rare hide.
I can't stand it raw.
Now, through the medium of a long-distance lens, let's see what Boris and Natasha are up to.
Boris, you are doing jigsaw puzzle?
No, putting script back together to find out what is fiendish plan we're going to... Oh,
You got it, darling?
you said it. We're going to scare them to death. Look here.
And Boris whipped out his copy of Disguises for All Occasions.
He's in here somewhere, listed alphabetically, probably. Let's see. Admiral disguise, Easter Bunny disguise, Uncle Sam disguise, villain disguise.
Boris, that's what you're wearing now.
Of course. You don't think I really look like this? Aha, here we are.
Oh, that's terrible. What's that?
Right.
No, darling, I asked, what's that?
That's it, Natasha. This is the disguise of mysterious monster called what's that? Quick, hand me my kit.
We're going to make up all the way?
You said it. The sky's the limit.
And the two no-goodniks ducked behind a nearby rock. A few moments later, a horrendous monster emerged and started toward Rocky and Bullwinkle, who, all unaware of their impending danger, were driving their herd of worms nearer to their destination.
Angel's Cramp, 2 miles.
Boy, am I glad. With all this here walking, a fella could get saddle sores on his feet.
Well, come on. We just have to drive our herd through that pass and we're finished.
But Rocky and Bullwinkle were finished sooner than that, for as they approached the narrow gorge,
Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo!
Good heavens! What's that?
and frightened out of their wits, our heroes dashed away, leaving the whole underground herd to the mercy of the wily What's That?
Or as we know him, Boris Badenov.
Don't miss our next episode, Make Believe Monster, or Once Upon a Crime. Last time, you remember, our heroes were driving their herd of fishing worms through the gorge when they were confronted by a most dreadful sight, the What's That? A frightful monster so called because whenever anyone sees it, they scream,
Good heavens! What's that?
See? Our heroes fled in fright and panic.
Not to say pell-mell.
While back at the gorge, the monster was gay and jubilant.
Who's gay and jubilant? We're Boris and Natasha.
Yes, the What's That was just a trick dreamed up by Boris Badenov. But of course, our heroes didn't know that.
He's right behind us, Rock. I can hear the pounding of his big flat feet.
Those are your big flat feet, Bullwinkle.
Oh, so they are.
Now let's just wait a second.
Okay. That's long enough. Let's go.
Hold it, Bullwinkle. I'm ashamed of us. We acted like cowards.
Who was acting?
We left our herd back there.
True.
Monster or no monster, we gotta go back.
How come?
Noblesse oblige.
Gesundheit.
I mean, it's our duty to meet that terrible monster face to face.
We couldn't back up to him, huh?
Come on, Bullwinkle. Duty call.
And reluctantly, our heroes began to retrace their footsteps.
They're coming back, Natasha. Quick, back into What's That costume. Oh, you're in already. Good. Now we can... Raskolnikov. Who's in there with you? Who's guy with the funny feet? Come out, you double-crosser, and fight like men. Natasha, come out.
Yes, darling.
Natasha, you're out here.
Darling, everybody's got to be somewhere.
But who is in there?
I don't know, but it's pretty cheesy disguise. Look, nose is all lopsided.
Uh-oh.
The two villains dashed away, madly pursued by the monster. Round and round the rough and rugged rocks the ragged rascals rudely ran until they were able to escape temporarily.
Darling, I thought Fireside Crookbook said that was extinct.
It did. Look right here. This frightening beast is now extinct.
Turn page, darling.
Almost. Oh, boy.
Things looked bad for Boris and Natasha until the wily Whatsat, dizzy from chasing around the rock, collapsed in a heap.
Let's go, Boris.
Hold it, hold it. Look who's coming.
Sure enough, our heroes had returned to the worm herd.
Well, we're back, fellas.
Did you miss us?
Let's get going, Bullwinkle. It's almost sundown.
Right, and I certainly hope we don't see whatever it was we saw before. Whatever it was.
And once more, our heroes began to drive their herd forward.
Come on, Worm, get a wiggle on.
But just a short distance ahead, Boris and Natasha were ready to go into their act again.
Now, when I count 3, we jump out and go, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. Got it?
Got it, darling. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo.
And Natasha,
Yes?
next time you stand on my shoulders, take off high heels. 1, 2.
And a second later, right in front of the startled Bullwinkle,
Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo.
What's that? What's that?
Hold your ground, Bullwinkle.
Hold it, I'm froze to it.
Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo.
I'll get a stick and see if I can scare it away.
but the plucky squirrel grabbed a nearby cactus and started for the menacing figure.
Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo.
But what might have happened, we'll never know, for at that instant,
Crime in Nintalies. There's 2 of them.
yes, the real Whatsat had recovered and was bounding toward our heroes, its teeth flashing wickedly. Don't miss our next biting episode, Choo Choo Baby, or Stick to Your Gums. For your next vacation, why not visit wonderful Wyoming? Its beautiful mountains, great fishing, fabulous hunting make Wyoming an earthly paradise. But if you do go to Wyoming, for heaven's sake, stay away from Angel's Cramp. It's a mess. It's also a fishing resort with 100,000 fish, 10,000 fishermen, and no bait.
No bait.
No bait. Of course, fishermen are a determined lot. Some of them tried diving for the fish. Some tried trapping the fish. Neither idea worked very well.
Ow!
With no bait anywhere, you'd think it would be a field day for fly fishermen, but the fish wouldn't cooperate. They wanted worms. So in the woods near the resort, fishermen dug frantically.
You come across any angleworms yet, Mervyn?
Nope, I keep running into these silly gold nuggets.
Well, keep at it. We're bound to get lucky sooner or later.
At the resort itself, there was Black Despair and his orchestra. But nobody was dancing, and the manager was at his wits' end.
I'd pay $1 apiece for fishing worms.
And meanwhile, our heroes, Rocky and Bullwinkle, are the proud and trembling owners of a whole herd of worms.
Proud because we've driven our herd 50 miles.
Trembling because we're scared stiff.
Yes, our boys have been surprised by a Whatsat. So-called because whenever people see it, they scream,
What's that?
you see. But this particular Whatsat is in reality Boris and Natasha, disguised to frighten our friends into giving up their herd.
Anything I hate is stool pigeon narrator.
But last time, another figure had just made the scene.
What's that?
Yes, this was the real honest-to-badness Whatsat.
Boris, that awful thing is coming right at us.
And look, Natasha, it's picking up a big rock.
Gee, if they're going to fight each other, maybe we got a chance to get the herd through, Bullwinkle.
Our heroes didn't know that presenting a rock to its sweetheart was the Whatsat's form of romantic courtship. Then again, neither did Boris and Natasha.
He is putting down the rock, Boris. What we do?
What else? We pick it up and crown him with it. Then we run.
Unfortunately, hitting a Whatsat with his own rock was a sign of acceptance. So the lovelorn Whatsat dashed after the retreating villain.
Boris, he's coming closer and
And what?
he is blowing kisses.
Natasha, I just got a terrible suspicion about him and us.
What is it?
I think we're engaged.
Well, with the two Whatsats gone, our boys continued driving their underground herd toward Angel's Crack.
Get along there.
It looked as if their troubles were over.
Don't you believe it?
Boris, what happened to the Whatsat?
He's over there.
Yes, the wily villain had spread his costume over a bush, and the real Whatsat was doing his best to romance it. He brought it rocks, candy, even played the mandolin. Imagine all that fuss over a dummy.
Please, does he make remarks about your friends?
Well, Boris, they got through the pass. How are we going to stop herd?
Easy, Natasha. We flood them out.
Flood them out?
Comes big rainstorm, whole herd of worms get soaked. Gets influenza.
That will ruin moose and squirrel.
Of course. Who buys bait that sneezes?
True. But how are you going to get big rainstorm?
Watch carefully.
And Boris pulled a small book out of his pocket.
Darling, what is that?
What else is handbook for rainmakers?
Handbook for rainmakers. What's it called?
The old soak.
Don't miss our next soggy episode, Reign of Terror, or The Desperate Showers. Well, today's program opens on a cheery note.
Love!
You see? For our heroes and their herd of worms have almost reached their destination, the fishing resort of Angel's Cramp. And they're not a moment too soon either, for Angel's Cramp has run clean out of bait. And fishermen deprived of their opportunity to fish can be mighty ugly customers.
You said it.
Finlayson, what happened to you?
I had a little tiff with a couple of the natives.
And they tied you in knots?
Yes, the natives are wrestlers tonight.
But it still isn't clear sailing or herding for our heroes. For in a tiny valley a short distance away, their arch enemy is preparing to do them wrong.
Why you in Indian costume, darling?
Is all part of Finnish plan to knock off whole herd of worms. Look, in Fireside Crook Book, special fold-out section. See? I do crazy rain dance. We get big cloudburst. Rain soaks into ground. Worms get chilled, develops into influenza. Gesundheit. And that's the end of herd.
You know, Boris, you're really a sneaky double-crossing schnook.
Flatterer.
And Boris immediately started his magical rain dance. First, he did the Navajo hoedown. Then he did the Gitchy Gummy Getaway. And finally, the Choctaw Cha-Cha-Cha.
Why are you stopping, Natasha?
Got to turn page, darling.
Oh.
Sure enough, in a little while, dark clouds began to gather above, a sight that doesn't escape the attention of our heroes.
Hey, it's clouding up, Bullwinkle.
Well, of course, it never clouds down.
Looks like we might be in for some precipitation.
Yeah, if it doesn't rain first.
Back in the valley, Boris was preparing for the grand finale.
Right, as soon as I finish the Menominee Mambo, and the one and a two and a dip and glide.
Darling, it isn't raining yet.
Just wait. Stop the music. Now comes the grand finale.
What is grand finale?
Absolutely certain way to make it rain.
What's that?
I wash car.
And Boris ducked out of sight behind a nearby mesa and shortly returned driving a vintage automobile, which he then proceeded to polish to a bright gleam. Sure enough, he had no sooner finished than... Unfortunately, Boris's rain dance had been too efficient. Every rain cloud had gathered directly over his head. As a result, the little valley was soon turned into a large lake on which two castaways floated on an old Essex. While just a mile away, our heroes were still safe and dry.
Look over there, Rock. It's raining pitchforks and plow handles in just one little spot.
Well, it's either a feast or famine.
Yup. Waste not, want not.
He who hesitates is lost.
A stitch in time saves 9.
Yep.
Yup.
Well, enough of this uplifting philosophy.
Yeah, I run out of sayings anyway.
Let's move our herd into Angel's Cramp.
It wasn't much of a move, for Angel's Cramp was only 100 yards away. But at that moment...
There, that was close.
What do you mean close? It hit the ground, didn't it?
Better it than me.
But Bullwinkle, what about our underground herd?
Yes, what about it? Could the tiny herd of worms survive 1,000,000 volts of electricity?
Don't ask me. I don't have any more lines to say.
Then we'll find out next time in The Lightning Bugs or Nuts and Volts. Last time, you remember, Boris's fancy rain-making plan backfired on him, and he and Natasha were left floating about in a lake of their own making.
Darling, maybe we could call it Lake Natasha.
If you don't share up, we'll call you the late Natasha.
Yes, Boris. Shish, what a grout.
Meanwhile, Rocky and Bullwinkle and their herd of worms were almost at the destination.
The fishing village of Angel's Cramp.
Won't do you no good, fellers.
What do you mean?
They got lots of fish here, but no bait.
Then we're in luck, 'cause we're driving a whole herd of fishing worms.
Honest and true.
Cross my little squirrely heart. Come on up, Roderigo.
Roderigo.
He's our lead worm, see?
Boys, you'll make a fortune! A fortune!
But at that moment, one stray little cloud floated over our hero's head.
Uh-oh. I don't like the looks of that cloud, Bullwinkle.
There goes Battle Rock. What harm can a little cloud like that do? Well, now I know.
Gee, I wonder if that lightning hurt our worms. You okay, Roderigo?
Rodrigo looked okay, but suddenly...
Hokey smoke, Bullwinkle. He lit up.
Well, he always was a bright little feller.
No, I mean he lit up like a light bulb.
Oh, for the mercy me.
Yes, it was true. The lightning bolt had charged the whole herd with electricity, and every worm was now fluorescent.
Except this one. He's Roderigo.
Of course, this caused some complications at Angel's Cramp, for when the fishermen tried to use the worms for bait, the worms just wouldn't cooperate.
Confound it, Mr. Squirrel. We need fishing worms, not glowworms.
Yeah, and you sure need 'em bad, too, don't you?
Of course. Angleworms is the best bait there is.
Except for finkleberries.
Yes, and what's more, we depended on you to... Finkleberries?
Quite an echo they got here, Rock. Takes a long time to come back.
Finkleberries?
Hey, it comes back twice.
What are finkleberries?
Obviously, they're berries that grow on a finkleberry bush, like this one here.
I never heard of finkleberries before, Bullwinkle. You never see 'em in stores.
Small wonder. It's very hard to pick 'em. See?
Bullwinkle slowly reached for a finkleberry, and as Rocky watched in amazement, the berry moved back out of the way and onto another branch.
That's a fantastic phenomenon.
No, it's a finkleberry.
Again and again, the fumble-fingered moose grabbed at the finkleberry till he had it cornered on the top of the bush.
Gotcha.
Seems like a lot of work just to get one berry.
Oh, it is, it is. That's why they're so rare.
Are they really good fishing bait, Bullwinkle?
Are they?
That's what I asked.
Oh, that's where I heard it. Well, looky.
And Bullwinkle held out the berry between thumb and forefinger. Immediately...
That's amazing. That fish leaped 20 feet out of the water just to get a finkleberry.
And the end of my personal finger.
Bullwinkle, I'm gonna pick a peck of finkleberries.
You gotta be awful quick.
I'll prove I'm faster than any old finkleberry. Give me an alley-oop, Bullwinkle.
Right, Rock.
Alley!
And the cocky little squirrel zoomed upward into the air, reversed direction, and approached the bush with blinding speed. Well, well, will Cocky Rocky pick a peck of finkleberries? And if so, where's the peck of finkleberries Cocky Rocky picked?
Very clever.
Be sure to be with us next time for the Bush Pusher, or Berry Berry, Who's Got the Berry? Well, in our last episode, we learned a brand new word, finkleberry.
That's spelled F-I-N-K-L-B-E-R-R-Y.
Yes, and...
Period.
Yes. Finkleberries are the finest fish bait in the world. There's just one problem. They're very hard to pick.
It keeps moving from branch to branch. How do you pick a finkleberry?
You gotta be awful quick.
And to save the fishing resort of Angel's Cramp, Rocky has agreed to pick a peck of finkleberries.
I'll prove I'm quicker than any old finkleberry.
How about the young finkleberries?
Them too. Howie!
Boom!
But that small bush was just a short distance from a large tree, and...
Rocky, you all right?
I think so, Bullwinkle. Get me up there again before I lose my nerve.
Once more, Bullwinkle launched his buddy high into the air, and in a startling display of low-level flying, Rocky picked finkleberry after finkleberry before they had a chance to move.
He's a dazzling aerial technician.
Yeah, and a flying fool, too.
In no time at all, Rocky had gathered a peck of finkleberries and returned to the fishing resort.
Rocky, my boy, you have saved Angel's Cramp.
Hooray!
All right, you fishermen, line up for your bait.
Boy, those fishermen sure look nervous.
Jangled anglers, huh?
Well, that was a day that will be remembered for a long time in Angel's Cramp. Fishermen couldn't even get their lines wet. Fish leaped out of the water to get the tempting finkleberries. Some of them even pursued fishermen up onto dry land.
Say, these must be pretty good. I wonder how they taste. No, get away. This one's mine.
But that fish wouldn't take no for an answer, and finally got finkleberry, fishermen, and all. Of course, our heroes were heroes all over again.
For they are jolly good fellows, which nobody can deny.
Of course, Angel's Cramp became famous overnight, or even sooner. And the more fish that were pulled out, the more money that was pulled in. As a result, a short time later, our heroes were in the loot-filled armored car heading for the Squaw's Ankle National Bank. They didn't know that Boris's rainmaking had resulted in a brand new lake being in their way.
Now, they got to stop here, right?
Well,
And when they do, we got them in trap, right?
well,
Natasha, stop arguing with me.
right, right.
That's better.
But unfortunately, when the car got to the edge of the lake, Bullwinkle was at the wheel, while Rocky took a short nap. And Bullwinkle didn't even slow down.
That idiot drove right into the lake.
Right,
What a fool I've been.
right.
Natasha, stop agreeing with me.
Okay. What we do now, Boris?
What else? We pull underwater hold up.
And the two villains quickly donned diving equipment and leaped into the water. Quickly, they caught up with a lumbering vehicle and started to force their way through the top of it. Inside, Bullwinkle was still unaware that he was traveling underwater.
Boy, what a rainstorm. Better turn on the wipers.
However, instead of turning on the windshield wiper, Bullwinkle punched the turret control, and Boris and Natasha were swept off the top as the turret turned. But Bullwinkle still wasn't out of the woods, or the water.
Getting kind of stuffy in here. I better roll down a window.
And Bullwinkle reached for the handle that would let in the lake water and drown both him and Rocky. Don't miss our next episode, Underwater Trap, or No Air in the Snare. Last time, as you remember, our story took a turn for the wet. For with Rocky asleep on the front seat, Bullwinkle drove the armored car full of money right into a lake. Fortunately, the car was watertight, and Bullwinkle thought he was just driving through a torrential rainstorm.
Rainstorm, heck, it's a regular cloud bust.
But at that moment, Bullwinkle passed a submerged signpost.
Turn left. Better put off my hand.
And the dim-witted moose reached for the crank that would roll down the window and drown both him and Rocky.
Seems to be stuck. Hey, Rock, give us a hand here, will you?
Well, what? Whoa, oh, sure, Bullwinkle. Hokey Smoke, where are we?
It's just a little shower. Ought to clear up in a jiffy.
Bullwinkle, don't open that window. We're underwater.
Underwater? That's ridiculous, Rocky.
Then look at that.
Well, I've heard of it raining cats and dogs, but this is...
But just then...
Golly, what was that?
Couldn't have been thunder, huh?
Sounded like an explosion.
Well, the brainy squirrel had done it again. For high above them on the surface of the lake, Boris and Natasha were blithely dropping depth charges on our little friend.
1, 2, 3, O'Leary.
4, 5, 6, O'Leary.
7, 8, 9, O'Leary.
10, O'Leary.
We can't last much longer at this rate, Bullwinkle.
If it's gonna keep up like this, I don't know as I want to.
It's not us I'm worried about so much. It's that money back there.
I'm ashamed of you, Rocky, thinking about money at a time like this.
Yeah, but it's not our money.
That's even worse.
We promised to get that money to the bank, and we gotta do it.
From here?
Sure. Now, here's my plan. You've heard about missile-firing submarines, haven't you?
Certainly.
Well,
A little while later, the cannon in the turret of the armored car swung straight up in the air and fired. Only instead of a shell, it fired a furry guided missile, Rocky the Flying Squirrel. And clutched in his grubby little fist was the box containing the money.
Squirrel is getting away with the loot. After him!
And the villains stopped tossing depth charges and started after Rocky. Below them on the lake floor, Bullwinkle took his fingers out of his ears and... I say, Bullwinkle took his fingers out of his ears... Oh, dear. As I was saying, Bullwinkle took his fingers out of his ears and started the armored car forward.
Why don't you say so?
The further the heavy truck went, the shallower the water became, until, just as it caught up with Boris and Natasha, it emerged from the water, lifting their boat up on top of the turret.
Boris, how do we get out of this mess?
Who wants out?
Don't we?
Nonsense. Where is Moose going?
To meet Squirrel.
And what is Squirrel carrying?
The money? Moose is taking us to the money.
See, Natasha, you got to look for silver lining. There's a little bad in everything good that happens.
I guess you're right, darling.
So relax. You got nothing to worry about.
But, darling, sign says low bridge ahead.
Aha! Now you got something to worry about.
And in a few seconds...
Tell me again about silver lining, Boris.
Well, we had a little setback, true?
Too true.
But on the other hand, gives me a good chance to say one of my favorite sayings.
What is?
Shut up your mouth!
But if you knew Boris like I know Boris...
Oh, what a schnook.
You'll know that our heroes still aren't out of the woods.
You're sarred, boy.
Be sure to see our next chapter, Boris Bounces Back, or the Rubber Heel. Last time, you remember, Boris and Natasha attempted to hitch a ride in Bullwinkle's armored car, but got the big brush off when he went under a low bridge.
Always something new, eh, Boris?
Like what?
This is first time I ever walked home from boat ride.
Meanwhile, our heroes were just depositing the money in the Hog Breeders National Bank in Squaw's Ankle, Wyoming.
You sure the money will be safe, Mr. Wangle?
Safe, safe? Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah, that is pretty ridiculous, isn't it?
What's so ridiculous, Bullwinkle?
I don't know, but we need every laugh we can get.
I meant it's foolish to worry about money in this bank. It's one big booby trap.
Oh, I could tell by looking at the customers.
No, I mean when we put something in this vault, it's in to stay. Now, let's see what happens when somebody tries to get into the vault. As soon as he touches the door,
Like this?
an electric light flashes. An electric handcuff grabs his wrists. An electric club starts hitting him on the head. And an electric FBI man comes out and arrests him.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
What happens if the electricity goes off?
It can't. The cable is armor-plated all the way out of the bank and out of town clean to the main power line. Look.
And in a little while, Mr. Wangle and our heroes were standing near the main power pole outside Squaw's Ankle.
Gee, I guess you've thought of everything.
Yep. Except maybe somebody cutting the main power line.
Oh, come on, Bullwinkle. How could you cut the main line?
Easy. You just climb up this pole and snip-snap with a pair of scissors.
Yeah, but the electric company wouldn't let you do that.
I'd like to see him stop me.
Okay, you're stopped.
Who you? Who you?
World's most famous electric company detective.
An electric company detective? What's your name?
Sherlock Holmes.
Holmes?
OHMS is an electrical joke. And this is my partner, Dr. Watts.
WATTS, darling.
Sure, I've seen your name on light bulbs.
Ho, ho, ho. Can I get down now?
Certainly.
Thanks, I guess.
And in a little while, our heroes were back at the bank.
Well, looks as if everything's okay. We must be near the end of another story.
Time for us to walk hand in hand into the sunset, huh?
Yeah, except it's awful early in this episode.
Early? Look, it's dark outside already.
True enough, the sun had gone down, but the story seemed far from ended.
Is only the beginning, folks.
What is fiendish plan, Holmes?
Is obvious, Natasha. We cut line, town is blacked out, we sneak in, rob bank.
But if whole town is blacked out, why not rob whole town?
Natasha, I got it. Wait till you hear.
What, darling?
If whole town is blacked out, why not rob whole town?
Boris, how do you get such marvelous ideas?
Oh, they just come to me.
Oh, I know.
Okay, Natasha, start snipping with snippers.
And the two villains began chopping at the main power line. In just a few seconds, all the lights in Squaw's Ankle began to flicker and dim.
Boy, my eyes hurt. My glasses need changing.
You don't wear glasses, Bullwinkle.
Well, then my eyes need changing.
And at that second, all electricity went off in Squaw's Ankle, and the whole town lay at the mercy of Boris Badenov.
Mercy? I don't know the meaning of the word.
It means the quality.
Oh, never mind.
Be with us next time for Boris Takes a Town or The Night Mayor. Well, we always say that when better fiendish plans are made, Boris Badenov will make them. His latest was to disguise himself and Natasha as inspectors for the electric company.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watts at your service.
Their scheme was to rob a whole town by cutting the main power line leading to Squaw's Ankle, Wyoming, and plunging the town into darkness. And this time, oddly enough, the scheme worked. Back in Squaw's Ankle, our heroes noticed immediately that something was wrong.
It's dark.
Pretty shrewd.
Thanks.
It did get late all of a sudden, didn't it?
Yeah, looks like every light bulb in town went out at the same time.
They don't make 'em like they used to.
Let's go see what's the matter.
Our boys started off, but unable to see where he was going, Bullwinkle stumbled over a small dog and crashed his antler through a store window.
Are you hurt, Bullwinkle?
Nope, but I'm afraid I bent this window a bit.
What's that wire around your antler?
Don't know. Leads back into the stores.
Here, I'll light a match and hokey smoke.
You're a little young to hokey smoke yet, Rocky. I think...
Bullwinkle, this is no laughing matter.
What's it doing in the dialogue?
Look here.
Sure enough, that wire was part of the store's burglar alarm system. But just then, a familiar figure came on the scene carrying a flashlight.
Oop!
Hey, it's Mr. Wangle the bank president.
Glad I ran into you, boys.
You didn't. You walked into us.
We got to get to the bank. We're in trouble.
They coming to look at the books?
Even worse. With no electricity, our safe isn't safe anymore.
Not even half safe?
It won't even stay closed.
Uh-oh.
You said it.
Sure enough, when our friends dashed into the bank and shone their flashlights on the vault, the huge door was sagging wide open.
Gee, this must be happening all over town.
Golly, looks like bank night for bank robbers.
It was true. The whole town lay at the mercy of anyone mean and dirty enough to come in and rob it.
And you know who he means, don't you, folks?
The two villains strolled into the lonely outskirts of Squaw's Ankle and headed for the first store in town, the Bonton Bootery. Sure enough, the door swung open freely, no burglar alarm sounded, and the two villains were able to slip inside with no trouble at all. And small wonder, for the Bonton Bootery had been out of business for 14 years.
Never mind. It's good practice anyway. Come on.
Meanwhile, back in the middle of town, our heroes were in a dimly lit billiard parlor.
Bullwinkle, I got it.
8 ball in the side pocket.
No, an idea.
Yeah, must have got the wrong cue.
What about our worms?
Yeah, what about them?
Good idea, huh?
Yeah, what about them?
Don't you remember our herd of worms?
Hmm?
What do we raise on our ranch? All right, if you insist, we'll flash back.
And Rocky reminded Bullwinkle that when they had been herding their fishing worms underground, lightning had struck the herd and every worm had been supercharged. As a result, they lit up like a lot of Christmas tree lights, which made them very picturesque, but quite useless as bait.
Oh, those worms.
Gee, Bullwinkle, it was only 2 days ago.
Well, I've slept since then.
And where are those worms today?
I give up. Now let me ask you one. Whatever happened to Evelyn Brent?
They're right outside in our armored car, that's where.
Evelyn Brent?
The worms.
Oh,
Come on, Bullwinkle. We're going to use them to protect the town.
these little creeps?
Well, if Rocky has a plan, he'd better put it into action quick, for Boris and Natasha have just turned the corner and are heading for the Hog Breeders National Bank.
Last one into vault is dirty no good, Nick.
You kidding? I'm always dirty no good, Nick.
Be with us next time for Just Boris and Me, or the Yeg and I. Well, last time, things really looked black for our friends, especially when every light in Squaw's Ankle went out.
Well, now starts the fun, Natasha. Last one into the bank vault is a rotten egg.
Of course, darling. But then again, so is first one.
Bullwinkle, I think somebody's planning to hold up Squaw's ankle.
Won't that make her fall down?
I mean, they're going to rob the town in the dark.
Jumpin' gee-horse that rock. How do we stop 'em?
We light up the town again.
But how, Rocky?
With our supercharged worm herd.
And the brave squirrel reached in the back of a nearby armored car that he and Bullwinkle happened to have
Doesn't everybody?
and pulled out one of their special glowworms.
Now, if we can just get him to cooperate.
Meanwhile, Boris and Natasha had reached the half-open door of the bank vault.
It's just like taking brandy from a baby, Natasha.
That's taking candy, darling.
You take what you want, I take what I want.
But at that instant,
Boris, the town is all lit up like, you'll pardon the expression, Christmas tree.
Oh, boy! As old Roman ancestors used to say, in hoc signo vinces.
Meaning?
The jig is up.
little did Boris and Natasha know that those flashing lights were really Rocky's herd of glowworms, lighting up loyally and making the street bright as day.
Keep at it, boys.
Well, with their plan ruined, Boris and Natasha had to beat a hasty retreat.
Squaw's ankle is safe at last.
Okay, fellas, you can knock off now.
I don't think they want to, Rock.
It was true. So delighted were the glowworms with their success that they stayed at their post from that moment on. This was a boon to the citizens of Squaw's Ankle, for the glowworms could change positions in a matter of seconds. Thus, the same sign was able to blink welcome to new arrivals and bye-bye to those leaving town. When a store changed hands, it was a simple matter to change signs. And glowworms were invaluable at clearance sales time. Of course, people flocked to Squaw's Ankle to see this wondrous sight. Thanks to Rocky and Bullwinkle, the town was finally on the map. And so as our heroes got ready to go home...
And in gratitude, dear boy, we are changing the name of Squaw's Ankle to Squirrel's Ankle. Hooray!
Everybody was delighted with the idea.
Not quite everybody, Sonny Jim. Well, this is it.
This is what, darling?
This is end of electric power cable, 20 million volts. You fasten that end to that track, I fasten this end to this track.
And then train rolls over wires.
Roast moose and squirrel fricassee.
Oh, how can you be so mean, darling?
Because it'll gonna be the end for moose and squirrel.
So?
The end always justifies the mean.
Then they can't fail this time. Congratulations, Boris.
You said it, Natasha. Shake.
Thus it was that the train bearing our heroes sped safely back toward Frostbite Falls.
Gee, I sort of hate to leave the Worm Ranch, Bullwinkle.
Oh, I don't know. I thought I was going to be a cowboy.
And?
Who wants to be known as a worm boy?
Yeah, lucky we weren't raising ducks to make down pillows out of.
How come?
Then you'd be known as a down boy.
Pretty sneaky, Rock.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
What would you say?
I'd say it was the end.
And so it is of this story. But next time we'll start a brand new bushy tale of Rocky the Flying Squirrel.
Well, I guess that about wraps up another Rocky show.
Certainly hope you enjoyed it. I did. I always say.
Bullwinkle, time for us to go.
Already? Okay, but first, here are some of the people who made this show impossible.
That's not all.
The fingers get tired. Oop! Got away from me again.
Well, see you next time. Ready, Bullwinkle?